Hey everyone, so let's do a little voiceover of my process for the illustration of Cheryl and Keith from Voltron in dress uniforms. Really the only idea behind this was that I wanted to draw them in dress uniforms, because let's face it, they both deserve, first of all, several promotions. Why is Keith in a cadet uniform? Come on. And I like dress uniforms, they're awesome. So I used the Garrison uniforms as kind of a base inspiration to get me started, and then worked out from there to make them a little fancier, a little more clean cut, just the kind of thing you would see in a dress uniform as compared to a regular uniform. Um, with Keith, I gave him some of the shoulder pads from the Blade of Marmora as well, just to show that, he's a member of that as well, and he's got these multiple influences going on. And then lots of medals, because let's face it, these boys have been through a lot, and they deserve at least a medal or 2 or 3 or 10 for what they've gone through. Especially Shiro. So it's just, the two of them walking, got the sketch done, started inking, with thinner lines than I used to use, but I've gotten better at using the thinner lines, and I really like how they look. It was just a process of being able to do them in a way that I liked, which is something I've struggled with until now. And then when it came to colors, I didn't really have a plan for this illustration, but I did want the colors of their dress uniforms to reflect their ships, the Atlas and the Black Lion, but also have some callbacks to the Garrison general uniforms with the cuts and the touches of orange that I'll start adding here in a little bit. Because I think, color is something that's very important, especially in this show, with just indicating who is what and what rank and all of that. So I started adding those oranges in to give it similar detailing to the regular Garrison uniforms. And I played around with some other things, giving Keith a white belt, but that felt a little too, forced yin and yang kind of symbolism. So I eventually decided not to do the white belt on Keith, and just stick with the black belts. And then, the nice gold chains and the colorful medals and all of that stuff. And of course, Shiro's glowy floaty arm. And then I started working on the lighting, and I'm just a huge fan of backlighting lately. So backlighting it is! Even then, I kind of went back and forth with how much I wanted to have that lighting and from what angle exactly I wanted that lighting to come from. So you'll see me go kind of back and forth on it a little bit. But I settled on relatively subtle lighting, just enough to kind of give them some form. And then I started playing around with what I wanted to do with the background. Now, normally with a piece, I will sketch the background out with the people because that works much better. It makes it feel like they belong. But initially I was gonna leave this as just the two of them on kind of an open background. But as I worked, I decided I didn't really like the way that looked, so I kind of started trying to add in a background, and this was my first attempt at it. Just kind of a Garrison sidewalk kind of thing. And I do like the concept of this, but once I got it done, I came to the realization that the perspective was just way too off for this kind of background to work for what I wanted it to be, and I also didn't like how cool the colors ended up being. I wanted to go for something a little warmer and nicer. So I sat and I stared at it for a while. Played with some stronger shadows to see if that made me happier. It didn't. So eventually I scrapped this whole background, scrapped those shadows. Thank God for layers. And I sketched out a new background, which was still them walking down a Garrison sidewalk, but the perspective was much better, and we had the nice kind of deserty scene in the background to give it a little more warmth. And even here, I changed what I was doing a few times. I had this nice kind of glowy magic fence behind them, which I eventually decided to kill just because I thought it made things a little too busy. So I got rid of it. gave a little more to the desert background, and then I started getting into those warmer colors. I changed the lighting to a warmer color. I did the very warm yellows and oranges and browns in the background, and already by this point I was much happier with where this was going, um, because it was closer to what I wanted in my head, of just kind of a warm, happy scene of them, walking back from some silly garrison function where they had to be all dressed up and fancy. Um, and I liked the little details. I liked playing with the atmospheric perspective, the bright sun shining through the rocks as it set. I think it created something that was much closer to what I was initially looking to do in this illustration. And at the end of it, I was really happy with how it turned out. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back with more soon. Bye!